quickly. Welcome to everyone. I just want to say thank you for coming to this, our third panel in our October panel series. And this panel is entitled, How to Get From Here to There. And the general gist of this panel is to give you guys some insight into possible HPC adjacent careers that you may not have considered before, and you may not have had a lot of exposure to on how to break into that career path or how to get from where you are now, which may be computer science, engineering, science, and you want to sort of break into that career path with no clear way forward. And so we've got a couple of experts here, people who have gone through the ringer, who've gone through jumped through all the hoops to get to their particular careers, and hopefully give you guys some insight into what they do, what their careers look like, as well as sort of some prescriptive advice on how to move from where you are now into their sort of career path. Now, before I open it up to the panelists, they have prepared some little some opening remarks. We do have a little icebreaker activity where you guys can just answer some questions on the Kahoot for me, for any of you guys who are familiar. And I've got it right up here. If you guys could just pull up, go to kahoot.it on your phone or on your computer, and just input this game pin. Get a couple of you guys in there, and then we can get started. Just a couple of questions to sort of loosen you up and get a feel for the air of like what people are thinking about in terms of their own careers and what kind of, where they feel like they exist in their careers right now. Cool. 3 thus far. We have 35 participants. So I want to see like at least 80% penetration on this if I could. Ten's pretty good. All right, 25. I'll negotiate. We're aiming for 25. Oh, I've got chats. Chats. Why is it not showing my chats? Ah, here we go. There we go. Thank you, Ashley. You're the best. You're the best copy paster like assistant I could ever hope for. Everything I say out loud, and it's in chat thanks to you. RJJ. All right, get in the next couple of seconds. I'm going to cut it off. Okay, I'm calling it good at 22. Thank you guys for participating. Oh, we got in last, 23. Fantastic. All right, so this is just a couple of questions about career thoughts. What's going on in your head career-wise? So first off, I am a. So what are you? Are you a student? Like what variety of student are you? Or if you're postgraduate, are you off in your career world now? It's nice to give us a little idea of where people are right now before they're listening to this career panel. A lot of PhD students. Okay, good. We got at least one master's, one undergraduate, and a couple of professionals. Cool. Well, and if they're PhD students, anything like me, they don't necessarily know exactly where they're going to end up. All right, going to the next one. So multi-select. I would characterize myself as a. So what do you primarily feel like you're like? What career path are you in, or degree path are you in right now? And this is a multi-select, so you can select a couple of different ones if you feel like none of them really fits you well. All right. Oh man, we got a ton of scientists and a ton of engineers. Probably a lot of computer sciences there. Oh, and some mathematicians too. Very nice. So one other. whoever that other is, I'm real curious as to, if you want to post in chat what that other is, I would love to see it. All right. Generally it's high level. You're interested in a career in, we've got like academia, industry, government, or also more other. Where do you see yourself? I think I made this one multi-select too, because I myself am like all of these, including the other. Cool. Oh, wow, mostly academia. I'm kind of surprised. That's very interesting, especially for HPC professionals. Industry, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And government, hit up those national labs, right? All right, and here's just the last little question for us. I know it's actually like true, false. I know exactly what job I want in the future. I have to ask this one because, I mean, I feel like for me, I definitely know the answer to this. And that's a big old no for me. Look at that, fantastic. That's the split I want to see. Even though you're relatively advanced in your careers, you still like, I don't know, could go any way. I have no idea exactly what job I want. And I think that this is true for like a lot of us, definitely myself included. All right, cool. So I hope that kind of got your brains working, got you in sort of a career-oriented mindset, and hopefully gave our panelists a little bit of insight into who they're talking to today as well. So let me kick over to the next slide here. There we go. And I'll introduce our panelists. So I'm just going to start from right to left here. First and foremost, we have Nicole Hemsaw, who is the co-founder and co-editor of the Next platform, which is sort of a journalism platform from best I can understand it. Please feel free to correct me on any details or aspects of this, you guys, as I go along. After that, we have Douglas Genowine, who's the Senior Director of Research Technology at Arizona State University, kind of from my neck of the woods. I'm at U of A, ASU. We have apparently a bitter rivalry, but they control all of our HPC resources, so I can't speak too badly about them, that's for sure. Like, yeah, Doug's on, he knows what's up. And then we have JC Gumbar, who's an associate professor for the Department of Physics at Georgia Tech. And finally, we have Travis Humble, who is a deputy director, or the deputy director of the Quantum Science Center at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And I just want to thank you guys so much for being here. And we asked you to prepare like a little bit of an opening statement. So if you guys would like to go maybe from left to right, starting with Nicole, I'd appreciate to just sort of run through whatever you'd like.
Okay, am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Very good. To be honest, I didn't prepare for this. I wanted to see how it would go. I feel like I'm in very big company here. I know Travis Humble somewhat well over the years from talking to him from Oak Ridge National Lab about quantum technologies. Other two panelists, I'm not sure if we've met or not, but like Connor said, I am the co-founder and co-editor of the Next platform. We focus on large-scale computing, so HPC is just one part of that. We focus too on hyperscale data centers, and we're very hardware-centric. We also cover some of the software stuff that happens. So the thing that's interesting about my job, and instead of having a prepared statement, I'll just put it this way, is that unlike a lot of you who have been trained to focus on maybe one part of the HPC stack, whether it's software applications or systems or GPUs or whatever it is, our job is really to see all the parts and how they work together. So in a lot of ways, I feel lucky to have the job that I do because my job is looking at the entire ecosystem. And I love what I do. I remember it got really interesting for me about 5 years in, after I kind of got the base sense of what goes in these systems, how do they work, what are the applications, what's the value of those applications. For me, things got interesting when GPUs came along and mixed up the hardware environment a little bit. And I'm all over the place. I should have prepared like you told me, Connor, but I love my job. And I would love to talk to any of you individually about what it is that we do. And if you want a mentorship or you want to try your hand at writing something, feel free. But I was all over the place.
No. You're good, Nicole. It was, I should rephrase it. we informally asked that you just want to answer a couple of questions here, Drew.
Yeah.
It's mostly a Q&A, and this is for the students interacting.
Okay. The point is, we cover a wide range of things related to HPC. So that's the challenge and the joy and the kind of never-ending PhD thesis that is our job. Only it's on different parts of the stack, never-ending. So, yeah. I hope that was clear.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you, Nicole. All right, how about you, Douglas?
Sure, thank you, Connor. I took a page from the book of Nicole in that I didn't prepare anything either, and in fact lost the email that had those instructions in it. So I can tell you my path to the panel, at least briefly. So I am a senior director at Arizona State, a job that I have held for less than a year. I grew up in the Northern Plains in at an under-resourced institution, a smaller institution, where I worked for 21 years and kind of built research computing and HPC capabilities kind of from scratch, and rolled that out across the state, and just came down here to Arizona fairly recently. And there are a lot of different paths to these kinds of jobs, to these kinds of HPC director jobs. Some folks come from academia, where they learn the computing because they have to, and become perhaps at least as enamored with the computing as they do with the science, and kind of shift gears. And a lot of folks come at it that way. And some folks come at it from a technical perspective, which is what I did. I came up as a system administrator and a software engineer and all of that, and became fascinated by advanced computing and shifted gears that way. And other folks work in maybe a central IT office, and one day the CIO says, hey, we have to do research computing, it's yours, do it. And some folks come at it that way as a pivot from a more traditional enterprise IT space. And I've seen all those different career paths in the Northern Plains, here in the Southwest, and there are probably others too, but that's a brief overview of my path and some of the other paths out there.
Awesome, thank you, Douglas. All right, yeah, over to you, JC.
All right, thanks again for having me. So I also did not prepare much, so Travis is going to have to show us all up at the end, hopefully. But I'll just say that among this really diverse panel, I have probably the most traditional, quote unquote, traditional career path, being now an associate professor at Georgia Tech. So really just staying mostly in academia, although I will say that I did a postdoc at Argonne National Lab and work a lot with Oak Ridge National Lab. So I've had some exposure to some of these other career options. And in my research, we're heavy users of HPC resources. So that, as Douglas was alluding to, that means we also, in addition to being enamored with the science, we need to be really into the computing side of things so that we can communicate effectively with the support staff at the various supercomputing centers, and then also with the ones on campus. And so I really find that we have to wear, essentially as academics, we have to wear multiple hats and switching between them quite frequently, in fact.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you, JC.
Yeah, thanks, Connor, and thanks to my co-panelist for buying me some time. I was able to throw together a slide real quick, but I'm not going to show it just for the sake of fairness. But I will tell you a little bit about myself and how I got to be where I am today. Of course, I'm at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which is a Department of Energy research and development center, closely tied to the government. And I've been here for 15 years. I work in the field of quantum computing, which, to be honest, has grown a lot over the course of those 15 years. And I would say in the past 10 years, we've actually seen the term quantum computer science itself be born. So I think that the fact that this is a topic that may be of interest to you, it's a good time to start learning more about it because it's an active area. I did not have the benefit of forethought to get involved in quantum computing. I actually did my studies in chemistry, theoretical chemistry, and eventually got a PhD in that field. But when there was a time to get a job after graduate school, I looked around to see, well, where can I go that's doing interesting and exciting science? And I found Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and that's worked out well for me. I've been very fortunate to be exposed to many different topics. I think the point that I picked up from Nicole's remarks earlier is that I really love my job. And for me, that is about the diversity and the just numerous pathways of scientific exploration that I get to go down. It has not always been a clear path, though. And I think like many of the other panelists, you often find yourselves in positions that you weren't exactly expecting to be at the time you started. And so I'm happy to try and help maybe address more, how do you deal with that type of unexpected development, as opposed to giving any real good insight on how you plan for the future. At the moment, I am largely working in, of course, quantum computing, but also in management and operations of scientific computing centers. This includes, quantum computing resources. This includes research and development in quantum computing. And so I can also give you a little bit of perspective of what it means to step outside of the science itself and the broader operations that go on at Oak Ridge National Lab.
Hey, Connor, can I have a do-over?
Yes, of course, Nicole.
Because this caught me off guard a little bit. And
oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to catch you off guard. I feel so bad right now. Yeah, I so much.
This is great. I want to mention something because everyone started with a sense of, I want to be in technology. I just want to make something very clear. I'm supposed to be teaching Victorian literature at the college level. Okay. Instead, I'm writing about supercomputers. You never know where your path is going to lead. And if you keep an open mind about, hey, this is interesting, or this is cool, or this intersects with something I didn't expect, like a love in the humanities or art, or there are all kinds of neat opportunities in technology for creative people. And you can still be a computer scientist or somebody that's majoring in computer science or getting your PhD in one of these areas and be a particularly creative person. So whether that's a creative writer or an artist or a musician, all of these themes that I see, whether we're talking about neuromorphic computing or quantum computing or traditional systems, there's always a tie-in between the arts that may not always be clear. And I needed that do-over to say that I didn't start where a lot of you started. I started definitely in the humanities. I was an English major. And again, the way I came into this was I discovered that a lot of technical people, friends of mine back in the day, didn't know how to communicate technical ideas in a way that was readable and sort of at the mid-level. So, a lot of people can write dense technical peer-reviewed papers, and a lot of people can write light, fluffy stuff like you see all over the internet, but there was nothing that kind of made technology, deep technology, a story. So that's my do-over, Connor. I just wanted to get that in. That's what I meant to say all along. That's where I started and how I ended up here.
It's an excellent do-over. Well, the first part we'll just pretend didn't exist.
Okay, good.
You're
okay.
good.
All right.
All right, cool. Well, so thank you guys for introducing yourselves. And now we'll open it up to questions from everyone here. And if you like, you can either, open up your mic, or over here they have the nice hand raise functionality in Zoom, or you can just type your question and I'll read it. If you're just like shy and you know what you want to dip out. But while we're waiting for people to come in with their questions, I do actually have a question for like all of you guys, just generally whoever wants to answer it, is what organizations or conferences do you feel like I as a student should participate in if I want to become a part of like your community or your sort of, not community, but what is it, profession? If I want to kind of work my way into your profession and understand what's going on in your profession, like where should I be looking to interact with people?
I can take a stab at that.
Okay, cool.
The quick and easy answer is the students are in the right place. Supercomputing, the SC series, is a good place to start. That's an excellent place to get your feet wet, especially because of the extensive student program. Another conference that I would recommend is the PERC conference, PEARC, the Practice and Experience of Advanced Research Computing. That is a smaller but still comprehensive conference, really focused on the research computing advancement, just as it sounds, aspects of the profession. It's a newer conference. It emerged out of the old NSF Exceed conference and is much broader than that now. And that conference is quickly emerging to be one of, if not the premier conferences in our profession. So I would highly recommend that one. And if you're in a director kind of position, you would need to know not just computing and data, but also advanced networking. And the Internet 2 conferences are quite good also. So for conferences, those are great. And for communities, I always have to recommend, because they did so much for me, the Campus Champions community. You can learn about them at campuschampions.org. But I'll let the other panelists chime in as well.
Well, I'll take a stab from the quantum computing perspective. It's somewhat unique in that it's a very interdisciplinary topic at the moment. And I find myself, of course, at supercomputing. I think that is a extremely central event, especially relating back to computer science. But I often find myself often at physics conferences, chemistry conferences, engineering conferences, because for a very young discipline like quantum computing, many of the computer science topics that are being addressed are actually interdisciplinary topics. There's a conversation going on between different communities about what the right approaches are. Of course, there's many other computer science only topics as well: programming languages, compilers, operating systems. All of these things, fit into the usual mold. But I guess for quantum computing in particular, you find a lot of diversity across the venues and where it's a popular topic.
Well, I can chime in here. And I can chime in with probably the only career advice I can probably give any of you, especially given the fact that a lot of you want to go into academia or government. And this is kind of strange advice, so just keep your mind open for a second. All of you should be behaving like you're tech journalists in a sense. So many times over the years when I've done interviews with really smart people who are very focused on one part of the stack or another, and I say, well, how does what you're working on have an impact on what's going to be developed in 5 or 10 years in terms of systems or software that'll be available to everyone? And they look at it as not their job. I'm an academic, that's not on me to think about. You want to make sure that you understand what's happening in the entire HPC and technology, large-scale computing technology ecosystem, so that you know how your work fits into what's happening elsewhere. So I'm going to encourage all of you to think about being a tech journalist, even if you never publish anything. Keep an eye on what's happening, because you're going to be irreplaceable in your career if you have a broader understanding of the market and how technologies that you work on or with have an impact. And for that reason, when it comes to what conferences to go to, you have all the opportunity in the world to attend a ton of conferences for free or low cost virtually now, which is really great. So I encourage you to step out of your comfort zone. I have to do that on a daily basis to see what's next. I have to say, well, there's this AI conference, they're just focused on system on chip processors, and it's not really data center stuff, but maybe there's something there that'll have an impact on architectures of the future, so I'll pay attention. So all conferences, even if they're not exactly in your wheelhouse, should be important to you if you have time to watch them or to participate remotely. Treat your job like you are a bit of a tech journalist. Treat your job like there's always something new out there waiting to be discovered, because that might be the next thing that you explore as a researcher or a PhD student or even a professor with your students.
Nicole, if you don't mind, I'd like to follow on to your point. I think that, when you think about your career and your profession and developing that, of course, from my perspective, it's about science and there's the scientific part, but there is an entire industry in which you have to operate. And, when it comes time for me to try to understand that, and Nicole, I hope you'll forgive me, I turn to news sources like the Next Platform to understand. right? Exactly everything else that's happening around me. And so it's having that broader appreciation, not just for the piece that I do, but for everything else that's happening. And I think is an important part of, you know, understanding what's your best path forward.
Thanks for the plug, Travis.
You're very welcome.
So maybe I can also just chime in a little bit and also segue to Ashley's question. So I agree completely with what Nicole was saying, and maybe to generalize that point in academic science, communication is so important, both at the at the high level with your colleagues and your collaborators, but also at across all levels. Because if you can't communicate your science, for example, to the public, you're not going to be able to sell it. You won't be able to get grants and so on and so forth. So that's a really important aspect of what we do. Then segueing to Ashley's question about how I came into an academic career, I would say, I don't want to say exactly that I fell into it, but it was not necessarily what I saw myself doing for the longest time. And I think for better or worse, the numbers support that you can't necessarily rely on getting an academic career, but if it happens, it's nice. So along the way, I was really preparing myself for other careers as well, looking into consulting or finance as a lot of, so my degree's in physics, so a lot of physicists dream about finance as a possibility, and really a gamut of options. And it was just that at least I was lucky enough that the academic career worked out, that I applied and got some interviews, but I definitely was considering other things as well along the way.
JC, I might dig a little deeper in that and ask, what do you think, so you got these interviews and it is a challenge. Would you say you did anything to better prepare yourself and make yourself more hireable, I guess you would say, in that community? Is there any tips that you can give us in how we might strengthen our own body of work so that we can have a better shot at it? Or is it just very competitive and do everything you can?
Well, yeah, do a lot. Okay. What is a lot of what? So again, maybe saying communication again. So going to conferences. So I often went to, for example, Biophysical Society meeting, because that's my area of research, and talking to lots of people. And that's really, more generally, you might call that networking. And it's an important skill for any career you want to pursue. And then in regards to getting interviews and stuff beyond that, beyond networking, publish a lot. Try to maybe have your own project, but also collaborate on other projects if that's possible within your own lab, or maybe with support of your PI with other labs, such that you can build a really nice body of work when you're applying.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, JC. I see down here that Jay has posed a question to all of you, which is it's a two-part question, I guess. Well, first part, I guess, let's start with that. What changes would you make in your career if you could?
For me, that would be I wish I would have found a mentor sooner. I didn't find a mentor until about 6 years ago, and I was already over a decade into a career path. And a mentor can really be catalytic and really launch you into space, and helped convince me that things that I thought were impossible were not impossible. Things like working on large federal grants with large, bigger schools. I come from a much smaller school. Getting exposed to all of that, learning all the parts of the practice of the profession that I didn't know anything about at all. I think a mentor is extremely valuable, and having done that sooner might have been might have helped me out, and that's something I wish I could have changed.
I'll pick up on that in the sense that I think mentors, especially early on, can be useful for helping you overcome what may be natural barriers that you've created yourself. I know for me that I, at a very early age in my career, was far too concerned about whether I was going to be successful or not. Was I making the right choices, you know, motivated by success, and perhaps less motivated by what interests me, what I was passionate about, where I wanted to actually, you know, see myself in the future. And I think, you know, what I've learned by opening myself up and taking advice from mentors, you know, later in my career, is that they can actually challenge you and ask you, well, why are you doing that? And sometimes those are just good friends. Other times they are academic advisors or colleagues. And then sometimes you can, you know, go out and try and find yourself somebody whose purpose there is to help you work on you. And so I guess even at a young age, when you're just getting started off in your career, it's still a good time to do that. I think, you know, if I were to give myself advice, you know, 15 years ago, that's probably something I would say.
Any other panelists want to comment on what changes you would make or in your careers?
I would have started earlier. That's all I have. I would have started in this field maybe. That doesn't do me any good now. One thing that I will say to clarify that may be helpful to some of you. I wish I had been more of a self-starter in this field. So it wasn't until 6 years ago or so that I left traditional publishing around this to start the next platform. And I did that because this community is so supportive and so helpful. And one thing that I've observed in HBC is that there are very few times that I can't call somebody up and say, explain to me how this works, you know? So you have mentors at the ready all around. You have people who will help you launch your career if you just reach out and ask. This has to be the most intelligent and helpful community I can think of. So there's, you know, I wish I had reached out earlier and been a little bolder earlier in my career. But, you know, if that's the only complaint that I have, then I'm in good shape.
Thank you. I think Jay had one more question in his comment, which is, could each of you tell us the most fun aspect of your position?
It's hard to pick just one, right?
You know, speaking for myself, as much as I am a little bit over Zoom, you know, after 8 months of doing it, it really is the human interactions that I think I thrive on. You know, the conversation and the sharing of ideas, even the arguing, right? I mean, that has its place in the fun as well. There's just something about that I guess I find to, you know, be evidence of you know, why we do science and the progress that can be made as a society through that by working together. So I guess, you know, the most fun that I have is, you know, arguing with people, but in a very good, spirited way. So.
In my career, I have traveled the world. I've gone to conferences all over the place. I've been to most continents now in my job covering this ecosystem. I've gotten to know what I would openly say are some of the smartest people on the planet, and I've been able to get to know them well, personally, professionally. You know, this ecosystem is so rich and diverse and global, but there's no limit to what you can do and ways you can find to interweave your personal and professional life. I love to travel. I've been able to do that through this job. I love to talk to people. I love to hear gossip. In this case, it's technical gossip, and to sort of get people talking. I am like super yenta. I'm a total connector. So there's that part of it. So if you are a strong communicator, there's no end in sight for what you can do in this industry, whether it's looking for personal, professional fulfillment or some combination of both. I really have the coolest job out of anybody that I know. Not quite anybody. There's one person who has a cooler job than me. I take that back, but close.
I guess I would say almost the same thing. The personal relationships and interactions that I didn't expect there would be so many of them, and that it would be such a big part of the job and the travel. I agree, is great. It's fun to go different places and share the message of what the research computing field is, right? Driving that awareness message to broader communities, like I mentioned, advanced networking. That field and the advanced computing field are becoming much closer friends these days, and being part of that message that's coming forward is exciting and an honor. And I didn't know that going in, and it's been fantastic. And having that transform the how I carry out the job has been very very rewarding to me. So it has been a huge opportunity for growth. Again, I said the mentors will teach you what to believe, that what was impossible is now possible. I never thought that amount of communication was something I was capable or even interested in doing, and now it's such a big part of it. It is perhaps my favorite part.
Yeah, I'll just say all of the above. That definitely the collaboration with people, travel is a really attractive part of being an academic. And then I'll just yield the rest of my time to hear from Nicole, who has a cooler job than she does.
Yeah, we are curious if there's not an NDA.
No, I have a friend whose job it is she takes care of bands when they come into Austin, and she just meets everybody, and she has a great time. She has a party job. Okay, so no kids, so anyway.
Cool. Then I'm going to kick it over to the next question, one I really like from Shushma right here, where she says, if I'm looking for a career in industry in the HPC space, all the positions seem to require PhDs. How do you find the right opportunities if you don't have one? She says she's considering applying for a PhD, but is currently not.
I'll give it a shot because I don't have a PhD. As I tell my academic friends, I only have 2 master's degrees. So my academic friends think that's weird. That why wouldn't you just get the PhD? And my friends in industry say, why would you get 2 master's degrees? Get a bachelor's degree and write code and make a bunch of money. So I'm in this weird place. And I thought about a PhD for a long time and tried to go the academic route. I thought I wanted to. I liked teaching. I liked expressing ideas, but I really just liked teaching introductory. I wanted to always be working with folks who were just learning or encountering advanced computing. And you can do a lot of that in this job quite well. I can't speak as much to industry, certainly in the academic world, in the academic computing world. You don't need a PhD to do this, and it is often not required. And if I think about my friends at the National Science Foundations, the program officers that run those award programs, in that field, right, in the cyber infrastructure advanced computing field, many of those folks don't have PhDs either, and many of them even come from industry, which is in stark contrast to a lot of the rest of the National Science Foundation. So I will say it is possible in industry. I suppose a lot of the times they are looking for true computational scientists, right, folks to either write computational code, computational tools. And it is likely that might require a PhD, but there are roads that you can take that do not. That probably wasn't really an answer.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, no, I thought it was very good.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to add, I was kind of dissecting the question while you were giving your answer, and if you're looking for these careers and you're finding that those requirements are telling you that you need a PhD, then that may be telling you something about the careers that you're looking at, but I'm not sure that says something about the entire industry. I think that at least in my experience, there are plenty of people without PhDs who are involved in HPC and are doing all levels of work and research and operations and everything there. So, just to emphasize the point, I don't think that that's the requirement to get involved in this area. It may be the right thing for you if you're really passionate about pursuing research to that level, but I would hesitate to encourage you to get a PhD just because you think you need it to get into HPC.
Perfect. Here, if you guys don't mind, then I'll probably kick it over to the next question, which is from Ashley here. And it is, she says, as I think of all of your positions, I think it is a true statement that each of you in your own way have to pursue funding. Writing proposals, grants, etc. seems to be an important skill. Did you do anything to become a good proposal grant funding author?
Short answer, yes. So at my previous institution, there was training for this, and I would go to these workshops and trainings right alongside faculty members and learn writing a grant 101. Here's what a grant is. Here's the different granting agencies, everything from churches to fire departments to research computing shops, and learn from those kinds of things. If you're in a smaller or an EPSCoR jurisdiction, that is a state that has less research funding than perhaps other states, NSF has programs you can attend, like I did, that specifically teach you how to win proposals because they want to see more winning proposals out of those states, out of those areas. So that's helpful also. So there are formal programs that can help, and I recommend that. That was very valuable. And I will also say, I tried to write a proposal without doing that initially, and that did not go well. So you should definitely check those kinds of things out. And again, I'll hammer home on the mentor idea. Mentors at institutions, adjacent to mine that were a little bigger, a little farther along, showed me a lot, and that is what really got the ball rolling. And that is winning these kinds of proposals is a great way to highlight your research computing shop at your institution and to get attention from the administration and show that this is a valuable asset to the university.
So, JC, let me let you go.
Oh, sure. Since being an academic, we really rely a lot on proposals to keep our research and our labs going. I would say I was fortunate, although maybe at the time it wasn't obvious, that during my PhD, my PI gave us opportunities to contribute to proposals. And in fact, one of the things, so I've been in science now like 15 years since I started my PhD. Every year I've submitted an XSEED proposal, or at the time it was called LRAC or TRAC, but anyway, a supercomputer time proposal. And so I have my students do the same thing. And I think that's at the very least a good way to get started, is practice with mentorship. And then attending panels, workshops and the like whenever possible. And then just submitting and then trying to, submitting proposals and then seeing what the feedback that you get, and then improving based on that as well. Travis?
Yeah, this is exactly what I was going to say, that for every good proposal I've written 10 bad proposals. And it's really that process of I don't want to say failure, but in the end, not being successful and realizing, well, this didn't work. And Douglas's suggestion of taking courses and seminars, and I think I should have had that mentor early on to advise me on this, because I'm sure that would have made a huge difference in the timeline it took for me to learn. But I think more generally, as a young professional, you start to recognize how important what you write is, both in terms of the thoughts and ideas that you're trying to express, which of course is something that we're always struggling with. We're being creative, we're trying to come up with new things, but then you start to appreciate what the person reading and listening to you is going through, and you start to have sympathy for them. because you want them to understand you, and that's a hard process, right? I mean, for a lot of people who are in the scientific curriculum, a lot of emphasis is placed on being factual and straightforward and almost dry in our writing. I'd be interested to hear Nicole's take on this coming from the different side, but this was definitely a struggle that I had.
It's a little dry. But it has to be that way. So there are different kinds of communications. And so what you're doing, which is peer-reviewed and scientific and very factual, and it's meant to communicate different information in a different way for a different audience. So that's okay that it's a little bit dry. You do the job of getting our attention where we can make it something a little bit more interesting and graspable for a larger group of people. So, but yeah, it's dry. No offense.
None taken.
So yeah, follow-up question from Alexis in the chat. What was the key thing you learned at the seminar? I think probably two things. One was speak the language of the sponsor. And if it's the National Science Foundation, you better be talking about science and not about computers. And if it's the National Institutes of Health, you better talk about grand challenges in health and clinical work and translational clinical work. And not about computers, right? The computer is the tool, it is a means to an end, but it is not what those organizations are funded by taxpayers to do. So know the language of the sponsor. Keep it about the science, not about the new computer you're going to buy or the new network you're going to put in. That comes on page 3, not on page 1. And the other part of it that is harder to articulate is you kind of have to thread a needle of positioning yourself as being almost there, right? You can't position yourself as being too underfunded or too incapable because they don't want to fund something they don't think is going to work. But you can't look like you have everything you need already. You have to be right at the tipping point. Look at all the great work we've already done. We've done these great things. If we just had this, we could tip over and do this massive transformational, translational impact on the kinds of things, again, kinds of things that those funding agencies care about.
All right, here, let me kick it over to a specific question for quantum computing research from Ali here, which is probably directed to Travis. Would you say having a physics or a chemistry degree is essential or advantageous over having a computer science degree? As a computer scientist, how low level can you investigate a quantum computer? Would you lack the fundamentals?
Oh yeah, great question. So I think the first answer is no, you absolutely do not need to have a physics or chemistry degree to be involved in quantum computing. And in fact, there is nationwide a movement to define what is a quantum computing curriculum within a computer science department. And so people are very active in trying to identify, what is the path forward for computer scientists to be engaged in quantum computing in a formal way. But the reason they're pursuing that is because it's already present and they're trying to get it under control. So whether you are thinking about programming quantum computers or designing architectures or applications, libraries, tools, all of these familiar topics from conventional computing systems mirror themselves on the quantum computing side as well. And it requires almost the same skill sets. It's using very similar languages, very similar interfaces, very similar data structures, programming models, all of these concepts. But there's this slight uniqueness where the back-end hardware is, something very exotic. So you don't need to have a physics or chemistry degree, but you do need to have an openness to something that's a little bit beyond what you're probably used to. You can go online right now and take some tutorials, get access to some, free time on quantum computing systems for some vendors, and without any formal training, begin working on those systems. So if you're interested in that area, I would certainly encourage you to, do a quick search, look for IBM or D-Wave or any of these other big commercial vendors that are working in quantum computing. And you can easily get access to that. No physics required.
Nice. Yeah, you answered my follow-up question before I even had a chance to ask it, where to find the specific resources. I have a question here for Nicole. I know that I did a little bit of freelance journalism myself whenever I was getting my bachelor's, and I know it can be kind of hard to find places that are willing to just accept freelance articles or things like that. Do you have any advice on where would be a good platform to look at as a beginning journalist, or a place to start looking to disseminate your work so that people in the industry would be able to see it?
Yeah. So, by the way, I want to make this clear. That's a really good opportunity. If you can become someone who exhibits clear understanding, not just of a particular technology, but how it fits, that is such a rare and precious thing, especially if you're able to communicate about it. And usually at a lot of these publications, especially ours, you have good editors there who will help you massage it to make it, what it needs to be. So you look not just smarter than you are, but also a little bit more eloquent, perhaps. So I would encourage it. Really, for us, we're journalists, but we're also we're more on the analysis side of things. It's not just straight reporting often, but I used to be the editor of HPC Wire, which is very news focused and a little more mission driven in terms of the HPC community, and that's a great place. I can't believe I'm telling people to go submit to one of our competing publications, but and cooperative too. But that's a great place to go and get your name out there in a very community centric sort of way. You can. The email is actually editor@hpcwire.com. You can go there. You can contact me directly if you have something that has an analysis hook to it. Those things are so welcome at every publication. And so many people don't understand that. They think there's this, whole process but really if you send in an idea or a draft, someone's going to take a look at it. But if what you're doing is very HPC community specific, HPC Wire is good. If you have a technical deep dive on something that you want people to pay attention to and probably pick apart, get in touch with me because that's a good fit. The other thing too, I want to encourage you all to do, even if it's not you writing something, if you're working on something that is just so interesting and you want the world to know about it, you can always contact somebody who covers this for a living and say, hey, here's who I am. I'm just a grad student or PhD student, but I really want you to see what we're doing here. You hop on the phone and we kind of poke around and there may be a story there. So I think a lot of people are afraid to approach us because they think what they're doing isn't, I don't know what they're thinking, but it happens surprisingly less often. So I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. That was an excellent response. All right. Do we have any further questions in the chat? No. Do we have any from people still on the audio? If so, you guys may get lucky and get a reprieve right at the top of the hour.
Oh, no, we can't give them a reprieve, Connor. I know we have some shy students out there, but one of the things we have been really chatting about the last couple of weeks is how to maximize your time at conferences and how important networking is. And all of the panelists, you have mentioned it, I heard you say it several times, networking is key, networking is key. But do you have any specific tips on how to expand your network or any tips or tricks you used to meet people and engage people that you could share with these students?
You want to hang out at the bars after the conference is over. Nobody laughed. Nobody laughed at that, really?
It's a big part of it.
Sorry.
That's true.
That was my own professional advice, but honestly,
Actually,
connecting with people outside of the show floor is important because when you're at a conference, and this is something that everyone needs to keep in mind, when you're at a conference, you're running around, you're in meetings, you're run ragged, you get cards, you give them. It's not until all the bright lights, and a lot of us aren't used to those aesthetic physical environments that we're in at trade shows, you know, or sitting and watching PowerPoints all day. Find time after the show to connect with a couple people that matter. And you got to kind of pick and choose carefully, but that's when you can actually communicate with somebody. At a trade show, it's really hard, at least for me. I can't even do interview. I will say, let's hop on the phone later. I'll be at SC and somebody's like, hey, let's talk about this. I have to go back to my room and do it over the phone because the floor environment of a lot of shows is just, it's not conducive to real communication. So my answer about bars is kind of funny and silly, but it's also true. You know, I'm not saying bars, but outside of the conference itself is always good. That works for me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other dynamic that I observe is networking is a give and take relationship. You know, it's as much about, you know, stepping forward and talking about yourself and putting yourself out there as it is, you know, doing the reverse for the other person. You know, you have to be a good listener in order for them to be willing to listen to you. So I guess, you know, Ashley, going back to your point, one of the things that I pay attention to when I'm, you know, out and trying to build networks and especially at conferences, is try to keep track of all the people that I'm talking to and understand, you know, the relationships that are actually formed there. It's not just about meeting people, collecting business cards or LinkedIn contacts, right? Like that's almost superficial if you don't really try to get something out of it genuine. And so I think, you know, this kind of mimics, I think, what Nicole is saying is that, you know, you need to have substance to these relationships in order for them really to pay off to you.
Maybe I'll just add to that, since Nicole already mentioned outside the conference, which I totally agree with, poster sessions often are a better way to talk to people than at, say, oral presentations. So definitely hang around the poster hall, try to meet a number of people there, and then arrange, you know, meetings maybe after the conference is over.
I guess the only thing that I would add is that the conference experience, especially one like SC that is so large for our profession, is that it can be overwhelming, and pace yourself. And also you will talk to peers. Poster session is a great idea, and then it's you have an excuse to come up and talk to someone, and they're not trying to sell you anything, and there are many people that you can talk to right away, and that is a fantastic idea. There are a lot of vendors at SC, and talking to vendors is important, but vendors will take all of your time if you're not careful. So be cautious, or bear that in mind as you make those appointments or have those meetings as well.
I'm gonna add a little side note here, just something that I've noticed over the years, and I've fallen prey to this myself. For obvious reasons. I'm not actually a computer scientist. I just play one on TV as a joke, you know. But so much imposter syndrome, so much people, I just feel it off of so many younger people in HPC afraid to strike up a conversation with anybody. And there's almost a feeling that some of the well-known people in HPC are like off limits or like God. I remember I was talking to this younger PhD student guy, and he's like, he said, "You were just talking to Jack Gumbar," and I said, "Well, yeah, go talk to him. He's so wonderful." I can't. You can. You're in this industry. You're allowed to do that. You need to be. You need to get over your imposter syndrome. You need to get over this feeling that, you know, you're not good enough or smart enough to talk to somebody. I see a lot of that, and it surprises me. So be brave, because no one is going to know who you are unless you put yourself out there. And that's so cringy and painful and difficult sometimes. Believe me, I know. My work is on display on a daily basis for the entire internet to pick apart. So I got some tough skin when it comes to this. But, you know, put yourselves out there. because a lot of you seem afraid to connect. And maybe it's a generational thing too, but it is something that I've noticed. So
I would piggyback on that. Yeah, be brave. And I will share a story that I have not shared with anyone, so I'll share with you, my 31 closest friends. In 2006, very early in my career, I was invited to present a paper at a conference overseas, and turned the opportunity down because I didn't think that I could do it and didn't believe that I could do it. And did not attend a big professional conference for another 8 years. And what connections could have been made there? What could have catapulted out of that event? So be brave.
be self-promotional and unafraid and unabashed about it.
All right. Unless JC or Travis has something to add, I'll move over to Shushma's question here, where she asks, how do you talk to people about your work when everybody at the conference is doing their own thing? Even though it's broadly HPC, each of them is working on a particular subtopic or a tool I've never heard of.
Yeah, so I just threw in chat, it is important going in, I think it's important going into these things, knowing your audience. I have an elevator speech for vendors, and I have one for not vendors, basically, that says, what are the biggest 3 things we're doing at ASU right now? Because you have a small amount of time, and they're not going to know all of the little details, and they're probably not going to care about all the little details. So I'm a firm believer in elevator pitches, and well-rehearsed ones are easier to deliver.
And I think that there's the other side to this coin, which is you want to learn as much as you can while you're at these events. And so the fact that you are being faced with this diversity of experiences and topics, that actually you can play to your benefit, if you have the energy and the time to pay attention and listen to what these people are saying as well. So, it is difficult to engage them in conversation if you haven't practiced and figured out, okay, what are the most important things that I want to communicate? Come up with your priorities, just like Douglas was saying. But on the flip side, you've got to anticipate that those people are feeling the exact same way you are. And they're trying to understand how to navigate this great sea, and they're looking for someone to listen to them. The benefit to you is that 10 years from now, you may be working in their field, and that conversation may end up being the most important thing that happened to you. Maybe not, right? But it's a great opportunity to learn something new.
It's striking how much of this call that we've had so far boils down to communication. Almost everything that we've talked about is communication, period. And technical communication and interpersonal communication. And weaving between those two things is really hard, right? So talking to somebody about what you do in a way that doesn't immediately turn them off because it's too low level and into the weeds, but it gets their attention because it's clear you're a technologist. That's very difficult to balance those things. We have to do that in our articles where we're writing for technical people in a way that is readable, because not everyone is an expert in whatever the topic is they're writing, whether it's a switch chip or an accelerator or whatever it is. So that it's just funny that this is all communication. It can't be discounted as the most important thing in this field, even this field.
Right. If there's not much else to add, I'll move on. From not Ashley, but Ali Ecker here, he asks, as a PhD candidate researcher, it sometimes feels like my research has no impact on anything. My papers are published in peer-reviewed conferences, but at most takes a couple of citations. This is why I'm skeptical to academia. Did you also feel like this before, or is it just me? I feel like JC could definitely weigh in on this one too, being directly in academia as well.
I think that's a pretty normal feeling. I mean, rare is even I would say already at the stage I'm at, rare is the person that is so supremely confident in what they do that that they know it will find interest or purchase among, broad audiences. That you are publishing work already says that people find it valuable. And then, just coming back to the running theme perhaps of the day is then trying to just practice communicating that in such a way to at least, get some interest from others as you're networking with people and such. And maybe just to flesh that out a little more, like you say, everybody is doing their own thing. It's almost inevitable that we have to have tunnel vision, at least for a part of our time, in order to do what we do. But that doesn't mean you can't get them interested, but it does mean you should be an attentive listener as well when you're communicating, to see what things perhaps pique their interest, and then that you can kind of go off in different directions depending on what they are interested in.
Yeah, maybe building on what JC said, I wouldn't consider it especially a concern if you are out there, you're publishing, you're going to conferences, you're presenting. Yes, you're getting a few citations. That's normal, right? I mean, that's how you start. What I think you might start to be worried is if a year from now or 2 years from now, that hasn't changed, right? That may mean that you're in a rut. That may mean that, you need to find a new publication avenue, right? Maybe you're not getting out to the right audience. Maybe the topic you've chosen, you need to explain it better. But just being at a certain level in itself isn't something that I would consider a concern. It's more of, are you as a person continuing to develop and making progress towards the goal that you've set for yourself? And that's something that takes time and close attention to understand.
All right. Well, here I got another question here from Rocio, which is for PhD and an advanced stage students that want to begin their own research collaborations, for example, regarding new interests out of the scope of their thesis. In this all is going virtual situation, how would you establish new research collaborations? It needs finding the appropriate person, catching his or her attention without being in person at a conference, etc.
So, I mean, I'll give you a best guess. It's a little bit difficult for me to answer it completely accurately because in some ways I have too many collaborations at the moment. But the issue, I think, is that you've got to take advantage of these online interactions to, strike up the conversation. I think if you can find people who share your common interest and you demonstrate enthusiasm for working on it, then generally that's enough to engage them. It may be a follow-up call after you've met someone at a conference where you've sent them off a quick chat, or it may be an email because you saw their paper presented and you'd like to get an interaction that way. But you've got to take it on yourself to reach out. That is no difference than if we were having conferences and you saw someone present. You've still got to walk up and be the person to say, hello, my name is, in order to just get the conversation started.
So that kind of goes back to the be brave. Have you all had those interactions? Like, is there any advice? Do you like to get those in an email? Like, and how should they address those? Like, dear Travis, I was at your presentation and, can we have a follow-up phone call? Or how would you suggest they do that? How would you suggest they be brave in this virtual world right now?
So I'm the guy that still struggles on using Slack. So I may be the last person who should describe virtual tools. But, for me, an email if somebody sends out an email and says, hey, I saw you talking recently and I was really interested. Could we talk more? I'd like to learn more about what you're doing. Or, what doesn't work is when they tell me, oh, I'm sorry, you're wrong, and I've got a better idea, and I'm going to, I'd like to schedule a 1-hour meeting to explain that to you.
That doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. That actually has a negative approach on me, effect on me. And so I think, while being bold is an important part of it, you also have to be respectful, and you also have to be deliberate, right? And so it's not just about making noise. It's about, being genuine in that interaction.
Yeah, that is one of the things I think our students are very interested in trying to understand. If we're in this period over the next 12 months and everything is virtual, how they make those connections. And so follow-up emails is, one option. But I think just coming back to what Doug said, you just got to be brave. You got to make the connection, and you've lost nothing if they don't respond to your email. You've tried. Just put yourself out there as much as you can, especially right now. I think it's really important.
Just to give you some an example of this, I have a student that's working with us at Oak Ridge National Lab. He's taken a gap year where, he graduated, I think he actually was a computer scientist, machine learning background, and he's thinking about going to graduate school. And, I told him, well, you can submit your graduate school application, but you absolutely need to send an email to whatever professor there is at that university, and you tell them that you're applying, and you tell them why you're applying, and, are you interested in working with them, and these details. And he said that he did that. And 2 of them actually wrote him back. This is even before the applications went in, just because they're those type of people who are open and interested in that conversation, and 2 of them didn't. And, out of those 4, he's established those 2 connections. And it's just like you said, Ashley, didn't cost him anything but the time of writing a good email.
So
I guess I will, go ahead. Who is speaking?
No, go ahead, Doug. I was just going to say, I know we're getting close to the end, but definitely tell us if you have some, this is really key, I think, to the students' experience this year.
Specifically about the SC conference, the first time I was there, and I didn't start going until 2014, I had just walked up to some folks at the Exceed booth. I sort of knew what Exceed was, and I knew folks involved with it and had learned a lot from them, but I didn't have any personal connections. I just went up to the booth and introduced myself and said, I'm really grateful for your organization. I've learned so much from you. I just wanted you guys to know that you're having an impact way out in the Northern Plains. We really appreciate it. And they didn't eat me, and they didn't kick me out of the conference. And that led to a collaboration with Exceed that exists to this day at a different institution. And similarly with folks involved in big national computing efforts, some folks at very large institutions. Virtually all of them are going to be at SC, and you really can walk up to them and talk to them. And sometimes you get a few minutes with them, and sometimes you get a little more with them, but you don't get any time with them if you don't approach them. And all of the times I have done that, again, no one has eaten me, even though I really feel like they're going to, and have convinced myself that they will. I always come home intact, and I am always better off for that experience. And lastly, I will say, being brave, be out of your comfort zone. At SC a couple of years ago, I went to a career fair, which I think specifically said in the title for students, and I was 39 and not a student, but I wanted to shift gears and I had no idea what to do. I had been in the same job for 20 years and didn't know what to do, so I went to the career fair and talked to them just like everybody else. Swallow your pride and get in there and do it. And that eventually led me to this new position at Arizona State. And again, it all came out of that conference. So many opportunities there.
So I think that brings us actually to our final question, unless students have anything else in closing, but so a lot of our students are looking for positions, whether it's an internship, a postdoc, a full-time role after they graduate here soon. I know all four of you hire various interns, postdocs, full-time staff in your areas. So outside of their technical or scientific chops, you know, the thing that they're qualified for to get the position, what is maybe one or two things that you look for in their resume or in the interview process that sets people apart from the rest of the people in your pile? So any job hunting tips you can give our students?
Maybe I can give one. It's almost a cliche, but I would say passion. So I'm looking for people that are really interested in what they're currently doing, and then also interested in what we're doing, and that they want to join.
JC, have you seen anything come across in a resume that makes you go, this person is passionate, or is that something that really comes out in the interview process?
So yeah, generally the interview process, although I can give a really good example. So the first postdoc I hired to my lab, so we're doing computational biophysics, but Anna, she was applying from a computational chemistry background, but she attached to her application a one-page document like, this is why I'm really interested in biology, and this is what I've learned so far, and this is where I want to go with it. And that wasn't something asked for, but it definitely sold me on her. Yeah, I think that's the expression.
Thank you.
You know, yeah, so I think adding to this, the passion, without a doubt, is an important part. You've got to be able to communicate that. And that's hard to do on paper. I think, you know, the example JC just gave, it is a great exception to it. You know, the flip side is, you know, what are the things that definitely, you know, dissuade me from being interested in a candidate? And, you know, disorganization and, you know, poor grammar and, you know, at that level, you know, you're looking at the CV or the resume and you're thinking, gosh, you know, if this is what it looks like when the person's put effort into preparing this, you know, what would it be like on a normal day-to-day basis? So that, again, that almost seems cliche, but that is so obvious of a thing to not do. On the flip side, what I will say is that when I'm looking for people who are passionate and have talent, I'm not necessarily looking for the person who's used the latest version of Python, right? Because I view that as being a skill that a talented, passionate person will be able to acquire while they're working with us. And I'm looking more for somebody who demonstrates that they are capable, not that they were capable. It's a subtle difference, but I think that if you're putting together your resume and you're going in and you're going to talk to somebody about a position, this goes back to maybe what Nicole was saying. You don't have to feel like, well, I haven't done this yet, therefore I'm inferior for this position. That's not the bar that you're being compared to. It's, are you willing and you know, to be engaged and to go after this as a role that you would like to fill. So yeah, it's hard for me to actually express this in tangible sense, but there's a quality to a person that speaks to what they're capable of doing and willing to do that's quite different from what they've done before.
It's just really openness to new ideas, openness to learn something new and not be afraid to fail. And one different thing about the industry where I am, when you fail publicly and hard. Okay, it's not fun. It's not an easy thing. You know, if you have just maybe an advisor that you're feeling in front of, that's one thing. But for us, it's really tough when you screw something up. Being able to handle that gracefully and being kind to yourself, and also saying, well, hey, I'm out here trying to learn some of the hardest stuff on the planet and connect it to how all the other pieces fit in this entirely difficult ecosystem. Someone that seems like they could handle that, who seems like they could basically not take themselves so seriously that that failure in a hard way would just be so devastating. Those people are few and far between. And if you think that you are one of those people that can handle failure and learn from it, and kind of get over yourself enough to to do something differently, that skill will translate no matter what you do, whether it's what we do or if it's working for Travis or anybody else on this call. Don't be afraid to fail. It's not fun for anybody. And most people, as vocal as they may be when it first happens, forget in 10 minutes anyway. So go easy on yourself. Present yourself as open and do it in a way that shows you know how to communicate. And if you don't know how to communicate, find an editor or get some help with that so that, so that you're bulletproof. So that's my 2 cents.
Do you want to tack anything on? Is it Doug? We haven't heard from you yet.
I guess I would add, not as exciting, especially in the technical field, the technical resumes, and we review things like that. It has helpful to be quantitative. Two things: one, be quantitative, and two, show something you've actually delivered and completed. And if you're a student, maybe you haven't built 1,100 different codes with different GitHub repositories with community efforts behind all of them. And that's okay. But you've delivered something, you've built something, and tell me about that. Show me that you can follow through and actually complete, and not that just you can do Python if it suits your fancy, but that you can execute an actual assignment. And on the quantitative part, when this is perhaps one way that folks can sell themselves short is say, I supervise numerous undergraduates in such and such. Well, how many were there? How many did you graduate every year? How many people went through your program? Or how many downloads does your code have? Or how much improvement does this optimization that you came up with provide? Or how many researchers have you worked with? Those kinds of quantifiable things are handy when you have a lot of resumes and you need to be able to compare them to each other. And in the technology space, we get lots of phoned in resumes. And ones that show that attention to detail can stand out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Doug. And a big thank you to all of our panelists. I sincerely appreciate you guys you're all very big, important people, very busy, and I appreciate you taking out an hour and a half of your time to help out all of the students here. And myself included, thank you for answering all of these questions. Yeah, I mean, I wish that there was a crowd here for applause. I'll give you my applause. One applause, yeah. All right, and I think that's about it. Thank you guys once again so much, and we'll let you go back off to your busy, important work. And if anyone has any follow-up questions, get a hold of me. If you guys like, I can maybe forward any questions or people to you. If that would be okay with you guys from any other students. Yep. Okay, cool. Good. So I'll forward them along. And please get a hold of me otherwise. And yeah, thank you again. I'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Connor.
Thank you
so much. Thank you, everybody.
Really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks. For the students, I'm going to hang on the phone for a couple minutes. So if you have any questions, anything you need to ask me, I'll be here for a couple minutes. I was also wondering if, Amal, you are on the phone, aren't you? Can you unmute yourself? Do you have audio?
Hello?
Hi. Yes. So I just wanted to say congratulations.